special thanks to the ones that registered and gave a donation to the foundation when they registered. As you know, we're a nonprofit organization, and everything is supported by your donations, but our collective donations. So thank you to those that have given a little contribution, and so we really appreciate it. So now about Linda. I have a little introduction here. Linda Lang is a therapeutic yoga instructor and champion of yoga as therapy within the realm of integrative medicine, as evidenced by her position as Director of Therapeutic Yoga and Coordinator for Student and Resident Education at the George Washington Center for Integrative Medicine. She holds an appointment as clinical instructor in the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Medicine, also at George Washington University Medical School, and is a guest lecturer in the Georgetown University Medical School's Master of Science in Physiology and Complementary and Alternative Medicine. Her expertise rests in creating curriculum, innovative organizations, and major events for and within the yoga community. She also sits on the Advisory Council of the International Association of Yoga Therapists and on the Board of Directors of Warriors at Ease. Just this past January, Linda envisioned and directed and managed the entire Medical Yoga Symposium single-handedly, which was hosted by the Freer-Sackler Galleries, Asian Museums of the Smithsonian Institutions. And this was a 2-day event, which gathered over 460 attendees that came to hear many of the pioneers and visionaries of the therapeutic yoga and integrative medicine field. This program involved 7 hours of didactic presentations and over 24 hours of experiential workshops and intensives. So I know it was a big event, and it was very successful.
It was very exciting.
Yeah. Linda lives and works in the greater Washington area, where her priorities are to expand the visibility, professionalism, and prominence of therapeutic yoga, provide therapeutic yoga in medical institutions, create advanced training programs, raise awareness within the medical community and general public, conduct research and continuing education programs on physical wellness. Her experience ranges from traditional and therapeutic yoga teaching, medical yoga education, postgraduate mentorship, advisor and practicum preceptor, management consulting, entrepreneurial enterprises, and organizational development. She told me yesterday when we chatted that she's been practicing yoga, learning and practicing yoga since the late 60s, early 70s. And she also has a Yogaville Ashram certification in cardiac yoga with Amrita McClanahan. We know Amrita. We've met her a long time ago. Mm. And she also has received extensive training with some of the main names in the yoga world, Leslie Howard, Doug Kelly, Betsy Downing, and many others. So I'm sure she will probably tell us more about that. So welcome once again, Linda. We're delighted to have you. And
Thank
we
you.
have, as we've heard, a variety of people coming from a variety of backgrounds and interests in yoga. And how exciting for long-time practitioners like you and me to be able to have this conversation with so many people today.
It's really an exceptional opportunity. I really am dedicated to this idea that the primary aspect of living a yogic life, a lifestyle that's pretty much governed by yogic thought and philosophy, has to do with the nature of our relationships with one another. And surely in my work with people who have Alzheimer's, and I've been doing this for perhaps the last 15 years, I think it's the quality of the relationship that I can have with an individual or that you as individuals have with others who have Alzheimer's. I think that's one of the most critical factors in slowing and or preventing what we can really see as a very frightening slide into Alzheimer's and dementia. So thank you, Kirti.
Yes. Well, thank you. So we've already mentioned Alzheimer's. Would you like to tell us your experience and what you do? And you told me yesterday that you teach one-on-one sometimes Alzheimer's patients.
I do. The majority of my work is working with individuals one-on-one, and it's people of all ages. And I find that there are certain things that seem to become apparent when someone, and I have to say that most of my encounters with people who have Alzheimer's or symptoms that are being identified as part of Alzheimer's disease, you can see the development early on, and some of the things that I do, I'd like to share with you because it gives me an idea of where people are symptomatically. But I will also tell you that sometimes I find that the experience of an outsider, a non-family member, with someone who is symptomatic can be very different than someone who is a family member. Because I'm not necessarily looking for symptoms, I'm looking for strengths. So that when I work with someone, we notice if strength is present or if weakness is present. And where there's strength, we honor it. And where there's weakness, we honor it. But where there's weakness, we ask for strength. So in my encounters with people, what I'd really like to make clear is that I ask a great deal of the people with whom I work, particularly people with Alzheimer's, because I find that they have become a member of a community where people stop asking them to do things. If I have Alzheimer's, chances are pretty good that I'm not doing my own grocery shopping, I'm not doing my own cooking at some point, I'm not clearing dishwashers and lifting dishes up and putting them up on high shelves. I'm not doing that essential stretching and moving around that all of us do on a regular basis. So in my practice with people, I ask them to really respond and for want of a better word, to really engage with me physically and intellectually. So I'm going to ask everyone to just do an exercise. Place your hands together in prayer position, and then interlace your fingers. So you'll turn around and you'll notice either your little finger's on the outside, the little finger that's on the outside is either on the right hand or the left hand. And everyone can do this. And then I ask people to interlace their fingers the opposite way. And 9 times out of 10, someone with Alzheimer's cannot replicate this on the opposite side. Or someone who's getting older and just having some coordination issues can't do that. So part of what I do is literally sometimes I will manually help someone make the transition to let them know that I'm really interested in them maintaining the capacity to follow instructions and perform simple tasks.
Yeah.
So in my one-to-one, I really engage asking perhaps more than some other people doing physical work with someone trying to build balance or skills. And I find that people love having someone share the experience of their weakness or their confusion without being judgmental.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So even though I might work with someone 1 week and come back the next week, they might not remember that I personally was there, but their bodies will remember what we did. So this idea of muscle memory, I know a lot of the work that's being done by Dr. Khalsa and other people throughout the country to help people maintain good memory function. I'm interested equally in people's capacity to move and maintain balance, because that is an enormous sign of strength and or weakness. And we all notice that when we begin to lose our strength, don't you think?
Oh, yes.
So I think that's one thing that has differentiated my work from people who I've observed. It's really the level of engagement and really getting to know the person with whom you're working. Did you want me to give some other examples, Kirti, or did you have another question?
I would love another example. Sure.
Okay.
I've been there where I have manually helped people do the. I'm jumping ahead, but do the Kirtan Kriya meditation that we've been studying, that you know about, and I've noticed the same thing, that maybe the first time or the first few minutes is very, very difficult. There's no coordination. The sequence of the finger touching is wrong, But if I, after a little while, it does improve. Mm-hmm. And I've seen that, that muscle memory.
The body is fascinating. That sometimes movement inspires memory and inspires engagement. One day it was fascinating. I was working with a group that I've been working with for 5 years, and I took in some straps and blocks because that's one of the things we use in yoga. And I tend to teach all seated classes where we ultimately end up doing some standing. So if you're sitting in a chair with your telephone, I'd like everyone to sort of slide to the edge of their chair and sit tall for a second, because this is what I ask everyone to do. And so people are sitting in a circle, and we're sitting on the edge of the chair, and I ask them to hold their thighs as they gently lift and lower their heels. And I tell them why this is good anatomically, and people either think it's fascinating or they kind of wonder what I'm talking about. But I feel that if I give them great information about what they're feeling, then they stay engaged with me. So you're lifting and lowering your heels, and then you pause and just sit tall, and then stretch your arms out towards the center of the room. When you inhale, lift the heart and gaze forward. And everyone knows, or most people know, this is chair pose. It's actually called chair pose even if you're standing. But if you just stretch your arms straight ahead of you, it can be kind of static. But if you create your pose with compassion and roll your palms open and then make eye contact with people across the room from you, which is what I ask people to do, and convey compassion, then we start building a sense of community. And we lengthen, and the back feels good, and it actually becomes easier to breathe. And then we inhale and reach our arms towards the sky and open to a greater sense of compassion. And then slowly lower our hands and bring them in front of the heart. And this then progresses into a posture where we extend, offering compassion, and then keeping the feet grounded. I ask people to rise if what they experience was feeling strength. And if they don't feel strength, then I walk over and I hold their hands and encourage them to stand. And then do the same thing, encouraging them to sit. And find that their capacity to ask for help in a nurturing and non-judgmental environment helps them rediscover their strength, even though a sense of weakness is present. And at the same time, encouraging a sense of connection to the people around them, because I'm sure many of you are aware and have witnessed, there's this propensity for someone with Alzheimer's to really draw their awareness inward in a way where they're no longer feeling valued or noticed. And so the desire is to build a sense of community. If it's with me, then that compassionate flow is one-on-one. But if I'm in a group and I have the opportunity to have people open to the greater experience of being accepted and feeling a part of things, then that's really important, because I did want to talk a little bit also about the importance of yoga teachers to build community in assisted living environments.
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yes,
it's really important. Okay, So then that's an example of a practice that I would do with someone on a one-on-one basis, where I would then have them standing with me and then practicing balancing. But if you're in a group full of people, then some people will be standing, and then you and or the aides or other caretakers who are present, you can teach them how to help individuals stand also. And so in every environment where I'm working, I always encourage family members to attend and the caretakers to join us, so that we can all learn the same language of compassionate contact, of non-judgmental interactions, of helping people learn to stand and move with a very little bit of assistance, helping them stay grounded, and noticing what they're feeling moment to moment: strength, weakness, balance, vulnerability. But one other thing I just wanted to mention was the use of props.
Yes.
One group we had, and I was having people place a strap around the bottom of their one foot. So you're holding a strap in each hand and placing the strap or a tie on the bottom of your foot. And just in terms of basic coordination, people were doing pretty well. And then I asked them to sort of float the leg out in front of them like a little kid on a swing set. And people thought that was really a lot of fun. So I really tried to add humor and a connection to a time in the past when they might have felt more playful. And all of a sudden, this one woman who no one had ever heard talk started talking. And she was so excited. Number one, she said, oh, look, that she could get her foot on the strap and that she could move with coordination. And she felt so successful, and she was coherent. And it just brought something out in her. So in your playful practices with people, I really encourage you to use your imagination in engaging, whether it's one-on-one or in groups. Very important.
It's a great story. I love it.
Well, it's very challenging sometimes to remember that you're dealing with a whole person, because sometimes we focus on the weaknesses. But if we pursue the strengths, my experience is that people rise to the occasion. They always do. And if they can't do it verbally, their bodies respond. It's a very rare experience, even in very advanced cases, for me, where the engagement hasn't been really valuable and I think meaningful for the individual involved.
So I was just going to ask you, what stages typically do you do you work with? I mean, you work with people pretty much with all stages, or early and middle stages?
With all stages. With all stages. In my personal family, there was an aunt who developed signs that of confusion, I think it's fair to say, after her brother and sister-in-law died. And this was a woman in her late 70s who was in perfect health, sharp, and seemed to go into a very rapid decline. And I heard from family members about her diagnosis and watched the way they interacted with her, answering her questions for her, and treating her like someone who had an illness. And in my experience, I have to say that I believe that can, you'll forgive me, push an individual sometimes more deeply into their symptoms than treating them as if, there was just minimizing what I observed, but continuing to ask for a level of engagement that really required them to perform and respond. So, and I've worked with people at every stage, Kirti, individually and in groups. And I find that sort of there's a mid-stage where sometimes people's overt behaviors are very off-putting, and what I would call, if it were not for the diagnosis that gives us a sense of understanding and empathy, sometimes that behavior can make them like an outcast.
Yes.
And we personally no longer feel that the interaction is meaningful. I also see this with psychiatric patients with whom I work. I work with an adult outpatient group and inpatient at George Washington Hospital. And I think it's our responsibilities as caregivers and family members and yoga teachers and physicians and people who are running community programs to find a way to help make peace with this outcasting behavior that is just so symptomatic of this illness. To help people understand what's acceptable and what isn't, but also to realize that they don't have a lot of control. And this is, I think, for me, one of the hardest aspects of the work, because, and I'm sure you too, Kirti, have run into people who can be so abusive.
Mhm. Yes. Yeah.
That it's hard to be with them, and their family members really have painful experiences with this. And this is something else that I think we can do who are not the immediate family members, is to, and I don't know, those of you who are listening, what opportunities you have to give feedback to family members. Or perhaps you are a family member and you need to help your other family members adapt to the change in your loved one. But your capacity for compassion is the most critical factor here, truly.
Mm. And then the other thing is, I don't want to stray too much from the topic, but also we have to keep in mind that when people, become so belligerent, or outcasting, have this outcasting behavior, it's usually a stage. It usually, eventually subsides. And so, and actually somebody was telling me just today that what they had observed, that was that the person with this behavior was really, it was a reaction to what she knew was going on. And she was scared. We have to remember there's a human being on the other end, even if it's unpleasant. The person was scared. She couldn't express herself right. She didn't know exactly what was going on. She could feel herself slipping, and sometimes it's just a reaction. They have no other way of expressing themselves.
Oh, it's very true. I have at times been in assisted living situations, and whether I'm working with someone individually there or in the group, and I get ready to leave, and they walk with me to the door.
Yeah.
And they say, "Will you take me home?"
Mhm. Mhm.
And
wow.
Yeah, it's very potent, and very frequently that will be one of the individuals who's really been acting out because they can't have control. And I will also tell you all that when you work with this population, and here I am telling you, and I'm sure that many of you could be in this position sharing your stories, but it's really meaningful to look at someone eye to eye and talk to them about what it feels like to no longer be able to make decisions for yourself. And sometimes in my group classes even, I will talk about our need for one another, what we can do for one another, and the choices we can make for ourselves. And try not to feel so burdened by choices we can no longer make. And that part of yoga practice involves this idea of surrender. And to a practitioner, the idea of surrender, we surrender to this Ishvara Pranidhan, where we surrender ourselves to the highest. It's almost we offer ourselves in service to the divine. But there's a way that we can interpret that for individuals who are suffering and just need encouragement to, for want of a better word, surrender to the condition, but not let it take away the remaining pleasures of their life. So one of the ways that I do this, and so sometimes my conversations are very serious in the middle of a class, depending, and I usually build it into the theme of a class. So let's say the theme might be on letting your feelings be known. So we might do chant, or we might be clapping, or we might be really talking to each other across groups, but we'll practice lion's pose. So I'm doing it experientially with you. So in doing lion's pose, you would sit tall at the edge of your chair again, and lift one hand high, and then lower it down, and lift the opposite hand high, and then lower it down like you're a lion walking through the forest. And then you look to the left, a little twist, and you make eye contact with the person next to you, and then you lift the other arm, and you turn to the side, and you look to the other person next to you. And then, as you know, in Simhasan, you open your eyes wide, you open your mouth wide, you stick out your tongue, and you and you make a big noise. And it's in that case that I always find out who the singers are, because they really belt it out, and it's really very funny. It's a great icebreaker for a new group. It's weird, and you say, I know this is weird, so close your eyes so nobody's looking at you and you're not looking at anyone else. But I tell them that they're at a point in life where they need to make their feelings known. And in practicing through yoga this nada, the sounds, shabda, making a sound with your voice by freely expressing yourself in your asana practice, then you take that experience from yoga and make your feelings known to the caretaker, to the person who's serving your lunch, to somebody who maybe is not particularly handling you gently. You make your feelings known. And people love this because you remind them that they have a voice. So you're right, Kirti. People go through different stages of symptoms, of reclaiming some of their health and well-being, slipping, reclaiming health and well-being. I believe that part of our job in bringing yoga in is to find every way we possibly can to give people something to hold onto, some strength. Even if they say, but nobody's listening, we'll say, okay, so that's a weakness you're aware of, so how might you make your feelings known? And encourage them to advocate for themselves and or to advocate for one another. So, we don't always learn that as children. But once you're an adult and you're struggling with your independence or have lost your independence and continue to lose your strengths, I really believe part of the practice is to have this, I will call it an intimate connection with another person through their process. Yeah. So I work with people at all stages. And with family members also at all stages of this process. Which is why yoga is so important for caregivers.
Yeah.
Family members.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's huge.
Well, it is, because it really helps with what people are now calling compassionate burnout. And it's just the brokenheartedness of witnessing another person suffering.
Yeah.
And losing ourselves, these loved ones, and watching them change. So a lot of the work I do also is with physicians, young physicians, so that they can learn about this population.
I was just going to ask. Yeah. Tell us about that part.
Okay. A number of years ago, about 7 years ago, I started working at the Center for Integrative Medicine at George Washington University Medical School. And there was a group of yoga medical students who wanted to teach yoga in the community. And we decided that the most expedient thing to do would be to teach the therapeutic benefits of yoga to the students themselves, so that they could begin to experience the benefits of practice for self-care and physician wellness, and then go more deeply into their own practice and study so that they could then prescribe yoga. But so many people who they're working with throughout their studies, and I work with residents also, they work with people who have varying degrees of neurological conditions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's very difficult for young people very frequently to really understand how to work with someone who seems confused.
Yeah.
So a part of the training that we share has to do with compassionate interaction and not going to a default to talking down to an individual, but to really kind of holding a hand, looking eye to eye, and really working hard for that deep communication, because the payoff is usually so huge. But it is a big part of the work that I do.
So most of these students are relatively young, you would say?
They are. They're in their mid to late 20s. Some of them are in their 30s.
Yeah. Do you find that, just out of curiosity, do you find that some of them already have their own yoga practice, or they're just starting from zero with you?
You would be so surprised. I would say the average number of students who come to the therapeutic yoga class, and it is an elective for which they get credit, the average is about 40 students a semester, particularly first semester, and easily 2/3 of them already have a yoga practice.
Wow.
2 years ago, we had 72 students registered for the class.
Uh-huh.
And so many of them have a strong understanding, although I will tell you, just the other day, a fourth-year student came in and said, for the last 4 years, every week I get an invitation to yoga practice, and I've never come. But here I am in my 4th year, and I think I need this. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. Yeah. And we have nurses on staff who come in. We have physicians who are now starting to come to class. You know, after year of getting all of these invitations, I think some people are finally getting the message that maybe this is mainstream. Maybe this is a good idea for me.
Yeah, it'll make me feel so good.
Well, yeah, I think the word
probably hear it from other people. I feel so good after that.
Yeah. Well, it's wonderful for coping with stress.
Oh, yeah.
And
do you want to tell us, because of course you know, and you have so much experience. Tell us the benefits for regular people, not just for people with a condition.
Oh, the benefits of practice. I will tell you that some of the most marvelous benefits that I can speak to have to do with hope and optimism.
Oh.
Yoga, if in your left hand you hold dukkam, darkness, sadness, and disappointment, and in your right hand you hold sukham, which is light and radiance and everything good with life, and you get used to in your yoga practice of honoring the goodness and that which is not so good, and the strength as well as the weakness, and your judging mind and your totally accepting mind, then optimism wins out. And so I think the strongest benefit that I can point to is that it helps us be more optimistic, and we learn how to create meaningful lives. Number one. Yeah. It also helps enhance our capacity to sleep, to fall asleep and sleep well through the night, to strengthen our immune system, to bring balanced awareness to our behaviors, so that yoga isn't just what I do for 45 minutes or an hour and a half every day, but it's how I live my life. It's how I respond when I feel angry. It's how I respond when I feel hopeless. It's yoga can help improve your vision. Yoga can help improve your complexion. I see it improving relationships. I do family classes and mother-daughter programs. It helps us hold ourselves with a sense of pride and nobility, just honoring our essence. I think for people to align with this idea of the divine, Kirti, we live in an age where people don't talk really so much in most places about their faith or their beliefs in a spiritual sense. And in yoga class, you have a chance to honor an energy that's mysterious and awesome in the true sense of the word. So I think that the benefits, they help us deal with inflammatory conditions in the body by increasing circulation, so we have less arthritis, we have less heart disease, we have less cardiovascular complications. We heal more readily. We have more stamina. We're more resilient. In the military community alone, just looking at the way yoga is being used with people who have chronic pain. The role that meditation has in helping us learn how to honor our discomfort, breathe through it, and not be so burdened by the weight of the world, but learn to carry it with grace, and also by reaching out and being a part of a yoga community and feeling the support of being with others who share the experiences on the mat. It's huge. Yeah. So for those of you who are listening who see yoga as something for someone else that might be really good for them, I invite you to just take a deep breath in and pause at the top of that breath and think a happy thought. And when you exhale more deeply. So you breathe in, think love, joy. Someone told me the other day, lemon parfait. and exhale. Exhale longer than you inhale. And Herbert Benson is a physician from Harvard University who labeled this as the relaxation response and has studied it all his life, and it lowers your blood pressure, it lowers your heart rate. And if you do it while you're lying down with your legs up the wall in Viparita Karani, it will slow your brainwave activity. It's a marvelous exercise. And it's totally yogic. It's a very big part of pranayama practice.
Yeah, just the breath is amazing. Just to learn how to breathe. None of us, in the West, none of us has ever thought how to breathe. And so, just the breath, and just connect with someone, that learns how to breathe.
And if you're working with someone or spending time with someone who has Alzheimer's and gets stuck, they get stuck and then you get stuck with them, notice their breathing and breathe with them. Or invite them to breathe with you. And it's really interesting how when you synchronize your breath with another person, you soften. And when you soften, you really start feeling. So sometimes we're engaged with people with what we'll refer to as dementia or Alzheimer's. Sometimes you don't need to talk. You don't need to move. You share that quiet space with them in a way where you yourself are calm, breathing in, exhaling more deeply, and so you convey and create a very safe and sacred space with that person. You don't really need a lot of technique. What you need is a really human touch.
Yeah.
Your presence. Just your presence. And they soften, and amazing things happen when people don't feel like you're demanding of them, when they can just be fully who they are in that moment without being judged. And you can tell them, just be fully who you are in this moment. I'll breathe with you. Just breathe in and breathe out. I can't tell you how many times I'm with someone and they fall asleep while I'm with them, and I just kind of hold their arm and I just make physical contact and breathe with them. Because life is lonely.
Yeah, especially if you're, if you're out suffering from something like that, or any illness, and their caregivers, everybody. I mean, we're all in the same boat. We're all in the same boat.
We are, and that's really as much the message of anything, and I think that's where medical yoga comes in, this idea of yoga as medicine. Yogic philosophy, yogic thinking, where we're mindful, where we're heartful, where we're honest, where we're compassionate, where we are passionate, where we are dedicated, where we are steadfast and trustworthy, where we are fully present moment to moment. So you don't ever have to have had a yoga class in order to have a yogic approach to life.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a huge subject area.
It is. It's very big, and I wanted to see if anybody had direct questions. Is this all right for you, Linda? And before I give instructions here, I just wanted to mention, do you have, I know that we talked about, the research that our Alzheimer's Research and Prevention Foundation has been doing on a yoga meditation, and I just wanted to see if you had any comments or anything about that, and or any words for our listeners about it.
Oh, well, I think that the meditation that you have put together is just simple and brilliant. And it has to do with, I was reading something earlier today about the importance of early detection of inflammation in terms of neurological well-being. And chant and single-pointed concentration and focus and using our fingers, all of these things to keep us really present in a tactile way, in a psychological way, verbally. It's profoundly important as long as we do it in a way that is relaxed. Because some people approach their meditation so seriously that they get really stressed out and they feel like, well, I'm not doing a very good job of this, and they judge their meditation, and that creates contraction, and the contraction is what creates the inflammation, and it's the inflammation that's the killer. So I just love the work that you're doing, and I also have to tell you I love the work that Richard Davidson is doing, investigatinghealthyminds.org. It's fascinating, and it echoes the work that you and Dr. Khalsa have been doing all these years. And, I know that your husband was one of the first physicians to advocate a lifestyle approach to the prevention and treatment of memory loss. And it's this lifestyle that is meditative and contemplative and relaxed. So I would just encourage anyone who's beginning to use this meditation in terms of prevention and slowing down symptoms is to do it in a way that in itself is relaxed with a big smile on your face and a real sense of surrendering to the sheer pleasure of doing it. Because if we approach that with a seriousness of an intensity that we approach everything else in life, we're not helping ourselves and we're not helping anyone else. But I think your work is just exceptional, and the research is very clear, and it's a beautiful, simple practice that I just think is, you don't need any more than that. You just don't need any more.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You very much. Yeah, I didn't know that you had all these thoughts about it, and but I'm glad to hear them.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
Sure.
So we have about a little less than 10 minutes, and I would say if people have questions, you can unmute yourself by pressing *7, and then so you can ask the question. And then let's see how much background noise we have. We may ask you to mute yourself again, and I'll give you those instructions. But so if anybody wants to jump on board, *7. We're here.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes. You used a couple of words. There were dukkam and sukham?
Yes. Okay, I'll tell you about dukkam and sukham.
Okay, would you mind muting yourself again? It's
okay.
*6 because it's really hard to hear. Thank you. Okay,
thank you. Dukkam and sukham. Some of us are familiar with sukham in terms of sukhasana. Sukhasana is the simple seat that we're all invited into when we very first learn to practice yoga. It's the simple seat where you sit on the floor with your legs crossed. And it's called sukhasana. And that which is sukh or sukham is that which is sweet and good, that which is loving and satisfying, that which is contentment. Dukkam is the opposite, but it's on the same spectrum of good and bad. So if in your right hand you hold that which is satisfying and joyful and marvelous, and in your left hand, then, simultaneously, you hold the dukkam. So for me, dukkam might be unfinished business. It might be unmet expectations. It might be my sadness, my sorrow, my suffering, the great disappointments of my life I hold in my left hand. But the great pleasures and joys of life I hold in my right hand. So dukkam you can think of as suffering, and sukham is not suffering. I hope that answers your question.
Is there another question? *7. There was someone else that was trying to ask a question.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good. This is David from Massachusetts. I'm the pediatrician. I've been practicing for 30 years, and I'm sort of entering a new phase of my life right now. And this is wonderful. It's actually given me ideas. I work at a clinic where we teach medical students and residents, and I'd never thought about this, but I thought about bringing yoga into the public schools, into children, and also into where I work on a children's level. But I was wondering if there were any. If you had, Linda, if you had a curriculum set up for teaching your students and residents yoga, or do you just sort of wing it?
Well, actually, it's a great question. It's a great question. I do have a curriculum, but also what you have to know is that each week somebody usually becomes a case study.
Gotcha.
So let's say you're a runner and you come in and your foot's in a cast. Then we talk anatomically about postures that would be good for you, but I do have a curriculum and a basic understanding that I want everyone to have when it comes to anatomy, physiology, psychology, their intellectual approach, and spiritually. But I will also tell you, David, that at Kripalu in Lenox, Mass, there's
Kripalu,
okay, Satbir Khalsa works with the Center for Exceptional Living and Stephen Cope, and they have a program for yoga in the schools.
Okay, yeah, I'm just becoming aware of that. Yeah, okay, so Stephen Cope and Khalsa, okay.
Yes, Satbir Khalsa, and if you send Kirti your email information, I'm happy to send you a copy of my curriculum.
Oh, that would be wonderful. I don't know if it was copyrighted or not, but
no,
yeah, that would be wonderful. Just because I'm sort of, I'm about ready to, exit sort of primary care practice and just looking for lots of directions, and this whole world is opening up to me, and it's just incredibly exciting, and yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, well, and I'll tell you, David, you're in really good company. At the Medical Yoga Symposium in January, we had about 45 physicians, and I was astonished at how many of them were also yoga teachers.
Neat.
Oh, that's fantastic.
It blew my mind. I was not prepared for that.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, it brings it into the true meaning of physician, is what my understanding, and that's it's wonderful. No.
Outstanding.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much. I will give Kirti. I'll shoot Kirti an email then.
Well, wonderful.
I found out about you and this organization through our yoga teacher who taught us the Kirtan Kriya meditation.
Oh, wow. Wow, that's...
We did it at the end of a yoga class, and it was just wonderful. And then
wow. Who's the yoga teacher?
Her name's Ashley Rose Mello. She's up in Massachusetts, up in a little town called Uxbridge, and she had I don't know how she'd heard about it actually, but she's very knowledgeable, and so I got the CD and I'm playing around with it a bit.
Oh, fantastic!
It's very nice, and I'm a true believer in the healing power of sound too, and so the sound, the chanting aspect is really just wonderful.
It is wonderful. It is wonderful.
Anyway,
thanks,
I won't
David.
take any more time, but thank you so
very
much.
For the program. Yeah, well, thank you. Pleasure having you
here. Okay,
thank
bye.
you. Bye.
If anybody else has a question, it's *7. Otherwise, I have a question, but I want to see if anybody else. I'll jump in. I was wondering if you could tell us the difference, or what you mean by medical yoga versus therapeutic yoga.
I will. I believe that all yoga is intrinsically therapeutic, as long as it's practiced mindfully. I mean, I think that we know there are a lot of studios that offer programs that just honestly are not thoughtful. It's yoga as exercise. It's what I would call an incomplete experience with yoga. But when I talk about medical yoga, I talk about the appropriateness of yoga as a true partner in medical settings, so that if we're dealing with prevention, which is, I've been going to doctors for 60 years, and I have to tell you that I have never had a physician talk to me about prevention. And this is, and I have to tell you that I think that obstetricians and gynecologists really owe it to their women to talk about prevention, and anyone who's a physician who has male patients owes it to their men to teach them about the pelvic floor and about physical and breathing practices to maintain pelvic health. So I see yoga very clearly as a medical, I want to say partner. We need to bring it into hospitals. We need to bring it into the medical offices. We need more of it in medical schools because of its role not just in preventing illness and disease, but in reversing symptoms, particularly given this epidemic of diabetes. Diabetes is avoidable and reversible, totally and completely.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's the medical application that I refer to, Kirti, and I think that it's important in order for yoga to be taken seriously as the epitome of self-care.
Yeah.
And that's why I refer to it as medical yoga, because I that's how strongly I feel about it.
I like that. The epitome of self-care. Especially, I think, at this time in our lives, in our society, where there is such little time. I mean, really, we all have such little time for ourselves, and we have, we're caregivers, we're providers, we have maybe little children, older parents, and we have the whole spectrum. And we have, we know people who have their grandparents are taking care of their grandparents. Young teenagers they take care. So there's a lot going on, and everything is accelerated, and so the self-care is really, really important. And I think what happens is we just delegate it to someone else. We delegate our doctor to make the best decisions about our health when really we can't afford it.
Well, I agree.
I've been there, and you were going to say.
Oh, I was just going to say I think that part of the thinking is if your doctors saw themselves more as teachers and they saw patients more as students, then we would have different relationships with our doctors. And sometimes it's the patient who becomes the teacher and the doctor who becomes the student.
Yes.
Because I think we have a lot to teach one another. But you're right, the layers of caretaking are overwhelming.
Yes, they can be. So yes, I mean, we have to take care of ourselves, and medical yoga and pretty much any yoga, like you said, if it's done with awareness, is a therapeutic for you, for your health. It improves your health, your mental health, mental well-being, your spirituality, your relationships, your contentment. And so that's why it's part of our 4 pillars of prevention, which is, yes, it is Alzheimer's prevention. We're dedicated as an organization to Alzheimer's, but it's really for everything. It's for everything, for the whole spectrum. You don't have to be elderly to practice. You can be young. You can be a child. You can be in between. And then it's also good, men or women, or healthy or or not so healthy. So wherever you are, the idea of a lifestyle approach with a yoga component, a yoga meditation component, is really important for our health. So I pretty much wanted to finish here. We're just a couple minutes past the hour, and I don't want to hold anybody up. But do you have any closing thoughts, Linda?
Well, I will tell you this. One of the great pleasures in being able to take part in a conversation like this is my opportunity to share experiences that have been very motivational for me in my own work and in my life. And to be quite honest, I really love individual interaction. So I would encourage anyone who's listening who would like more information to please reach out. I'm very good at responding to emails, and I would love to correspond with you and share any information I have, or if there's information you need that you didn't get tonight, or you feel disappointed that that somehow what you really wanted to know wasn't covered, please let me know, and I'm happy to follow up with you directly. And Kirti, thank you for this opportunity. It's really beyond words to have an opportunity like this. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Linda. I appreciate your time, and the conversation is very inspiring, very deep, and thought-provoking, and inspiring. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate everyone joining in, and we'll let you go. I know it's late on the East Coast. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. And as usual, we will just give us a few days, and we will post this on our YouTube channel so everyone can listen to it and learn and refer other people to it. And keep up the good work. So, Linda, thank you so much. Have a good evening, and goodbye, everybody.